Hello there, I'm Black Bright News, and I wanted to talk about Rick Nelson. Now, Rick Nelson is a 46-year-old Jamaican. He came to the UK in 2000. He met a British woman, settled down with her. They now have 5 children. Now, when he first came over, he had his car mechanic business, which was doing pretty well. But as we know, all the cars are changing now, and a lot of the cars are more complicated. So the old car mechanic business isn't as, well, it's kind of obsolete in a way. And especially if you don't gear yourself up for the new types of cars. So his business failed, and he decided that he was going to grow weed in the meantime. Didn't have no way, as far as he was concerned, to make money. He didn't want the degradation of being humiliated by a female. You know, this Jamaican pride. One, you know what, me not take nothing from you. They don't want somebody to say that they're using them, and, you know, I don't want you to mind me. Me can mind myself. And there's all this kind of pride going on, where they don't want to be in a position where they're reliant on somewhere where somebody can turn on them and start abusing them for not being in a position to contribute. I'm just hypothesizing here based on what I know about the Jamaican culture. So I'm hypothesizing that he didn't want to be reliant on his woman. He wanted to have his own little piece of money that he could do what he wanted with. Found it difficult to navigate the recruitment system, probably didn't want to go on the dole. So what does he say? He says, let me grow some weed. And when he's growing this weed, he's thinking of, okay, I'll be okay. He thinks of the best case scenario. If I do get caught, might just be a slap on the wrist, or might do maybe a year in jail. Funny thing is that if I was going to do something wrong, I would always think about the worst case scenario. I'd never think about the best case scenario. So in thinking about the worst case scenario, you're more likely not to do something that you're not meant to be doing. But putting that aside, he decides to start growing weed. Now, the newspapers do not say how much weed. If it was a lot of weed, we would have seen headlines, it was a £1 million plant and he could make £2 million and the sale value was this. We didn't get nothing of that. So we can assume that it wasn't a large amount of weed that he was growing. That doesn't minimise that he's still breaking the law, of course. Now, how did he get found out? Maybe a deal went sour. Maybe a friend came round and said, listen, give me a drum and no money, me can pay you next week. And he says, no. So that person decides, I'm going to go and shop you and tell the old Bill that you're selling weed. Maybe it's something as simple as that. It's normally somebody who lets you down in these kind of situations. But nonetheless, he was breaking the law. And in breaking the law, you have to pay the consequences. And he might not have realised what the consequences are. But the consequences in his case is that he's going to be deported. Now, he's looking for legal assistance and advice. I don't know with the new immigration rules whether he stands a chance. I don't think he does. I think it's more difficult to be deported if you arrived before 1973 and have spent 5 years in the country. But arriving here in 2000, you haven't got much of a leg to stand on, mate. But that's just my humble opinion. I think, another thing that kind of floors people or, people don't think about is habits. You start off thinking, okay, I'm going to start doing this. I'll just do it for a little while, just to get me on my feet until I find something else I can do. And that week turns into months and those months turn into years. And sometimes it's greed that gets you caught. Maybe if you'd done it for a few weeks and while you were trying to find something else, or even 6 months while you was trying to do something legal, maybe you would not have got caught. But when you long it out, that's when you're more likely to get caught. And one thing about the UK is that they're very slow, but they're very methodical. The law, they'll get you in the end. They might do it. It might take some of them 6 months, some a year, some 10 years, some 20 years, 30 years. I read the other day, 40 years this guy got done. After 40 years after doing the crime, he probably thought, oh, I'm scot-free. Scot-free. So, yeah, it's not an easy situation, because a lot of times when people come from Jamaica to the UK, especially after they've been here for 20 years, they can lose ties. And a lot of them, they don't maintain the ties in Jamaica unless they're going there on holiday. They're looking for somewhere to stay because they don't want to pay hotel bills. So they go to these people or relatives or friends, whoever they are. They take them a few little things and they stay where they're staying to avoid hotel bills. And then when they come back, those same people don't hear from them again. Now, you're expected now to be deported to a country where you have not maintained contact with your people then. And how are those people going to feel? It's different if, you come to Jamaica and you come because you want to start up your business or you want to build a home or something. When you come to Jamaica because you're a criminal of sorts, you've got a police record. People don't want to be guilty by association. Some people might not want to support or help. Some people cannot afford that extra mouse at their table. And we all know how difficult it is in the UK. It's no different anywhere else. People are just managing with who they have and what they have. And so somebody shows up who has not been in contact with them, I'm not saying this is the case. I'm just saying this is sometimes a case where people, when they've been in the UK or America for a long time, the only time those Jamaicans hear of them is when they're coming over for a holiday. And those Jamaicans are probably happy to hear they're coming over from a holiday because they've said, boy, I mean, we'll get one T-shirt, I mean, we'll get something on me, I'll get some trainers, I mean, we'll get this, I mean, we'll get that. So it's a kind of trade-off. And meanwhile they get something to eat. But when there's no contact, and it's totally different when you're going to go there, and this time it's to stay, that's a totally different kettle of fish, because you're going to stay now. Who are you going to stay with? These people who you haven't been in contact with. Will you have money to provide for yourself? It might be easier to grow weed in Jamaica. Who knows? It's still illegal, even though the weed is there. But yeah, it is kind of sad. But, this is all to say, if you come to this country after 1973 and you've not spent 5 years in the UK, you can be deported, especially when you're not born in the country. So don't try to do things that are not above the law, because it's just not worth it. Or what I should say is, you have to ask yourself, is it worth it if I get caught? Do I mind being deported back to Jamaica? Do I mind all what goes with it? The embarrassment, the humiliation. Do I mind that? Think about the worst case scenario. Don't think about the best case scenario when you're not doing what's right. Because sometimes when it comes to the UK, that's what you're going to get, the worst case scenario, something that you didn't expect. And nobody wants that for anybody. So I feel sorry for, I forgot his name now. What was his name? Not Mark Nelson. Yeah. He probably didn't think this was going to happen, but what can I say? Anyway, I found the article in The Guardian. I think it's today's Guardian, so you can check it out and see what you think. And let me have your comments. And that's all for now. Bye-bye.